Hey guys, welcome back to Operation Red Barron, the Russian Revolution recap, and then counting up the points. So, um, we misread some rules during the war, which affected both the Russians and the British. Uh, Stuff we both did during the World War One that we should have changed to make it better. So the first thing was once World War One ends, there are only certain ports each nation can lend lease to. So Primorsky Cry for the U.S. was gone. It was Soviet, so the U.S. really had nothing to do in the game. Or Archangelist, which was also Soviet. Okay, Kola and Archangelist are the British. So even though they were able to lend lease to Primorsky or to Petrograd the entire war, once the war ended, that port was no longer available for them to lend lease. So the British could not do anything lend lease wise until the random event came that allowed them to come through Afghanistan. So they basically collect their money for a few turns, and then I think in four, round four, that card was drawn, and so they were able to place two units, and then they were lend leasing trains because they had all this money there. So, yeah, so the British couldn't do much. The U.S. Couldn't do anything until they withdrew. The French, because Crimea was taken, couldn't do anything, so they collected money until they withdrew. The Germans started by lending leasing to the Finns, but then my entire army was here and took out these two the next turn. So he started lend leasing to the Polish until they were taken out on the last turn of the game. The Ottomans had a withdrawal in like turn three, I think, three or four, and so did the Austrians. So we left the game with just the Germans and the British still lend leasing. We also drew two random event cards that shortened the war by one turn and one that increased it. So we only played 5 turns, which also hurt the Russians because, as you can see, we had one Ukrainian, technically 2 Ukrainian because one was now Polish, territories left to take. We got down there. We have everything else. We have all our other points done except for that. So that would have given us 2 more points if we would have had one more turn. The other things that sort of hindered me too was I took too long getting Finland. So all my stuff, I had to send everything that was here, bam. And then to get it back out, it took me a while because I couldn't rail through Petrograd, there's no rail down here. So those couple things are what hurt the Soviets. So lessons learned there on everything. Another random event we drew was the Polish took Western Ukraine and got all the units, but there was nothing there, so they basically just took Western Ukraine. That was now Polish. And then we pulled another one where they could attack 2 spaces away from Poland. So they took southern Belarusia, which once again hurt me because my trains were here and there's no rail from Latvia into Congress of Poland. So I had to come back out here, take that, and then go in there, where if I could have went straight down with the trains, I could have possibly gotten everything else. So a couple things we, could have been different, but overall, it was a well-played Russian Revolution. Me and Bob sat down here and probably about an hour played the entire thing, partially because, 3 nations couldn't even lend lease for a while, and then they withdrew. So this part of the game, once the World War I ends, the Russian Revolution can be played very, very quickly. Actually, he was doing all the other allies' turns, and then as I was finishing up the Soviets, he's like, okay, Soviets' turn again. So we went pretty good. So now the points. So we'll start with Russia because, they were there. So we got all of our points except for Ukrainian 2 points, and we were 1 step away from getting Sweden up. So we had the rest of ours. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We got to count those from there. And then Moscow was 14. So we had 14 points. Okay? So we held these territories. You know, we got Go West. We got the Polish territories. We got the Finnish territories. We did not get the Ukrainians. We connected this over. We had the rail line going, and we preserved the Republic. So we did good. So a couple of things that hurt us, obviously, was not getting Ukraine back, and losing Primorsky Krai cost us a point, too. So we ended up at 14 total points. Now, the Central Powers, you know, they have Berlin, Vienna, Constantinople, they got Petrograd, and they got Peking. So remember when you're playing, you know, Peking is a warlord territory that the nationalists have to take to get that point. Otherwise, the Central Powers get that point. So just remember that when you're trying to finish up your Chinese Civil War stuff that's going on there. So they have 5 cities. Okay? Then I put the points down, and then the red dice are the negatives because you lose 1 point for every home territory you lose. So the Ottomans lose 1 for Anatolia. The Austrians lose 1 for Bosnia. And the Germans would lose 2, 3 for home country Germany. Now, you can't go negative. So, for example, Germany had 2 points because they had, I forget what they had there. West Poland. They have, not West Poland, sorry. They have Western Ukraine because it's German controlled at the end of the game. So they get that point, and they have global reach. They didn't get anything else, but because they had -3, theirs going to be at 0. Okay? The Ottomans got two of their expanding empire territories, but lost 1, so they're going to have 1. And that's the Austrians. The Ottomans, same thing. They had 2 of their victory points, and then lost 1 for their home country. So they have 5, and then 6, 7. So the Central Powers have 7. So they got their points for. They controlled the Baltic area pretty good, where the Balkan War happened. He did good there. So they got their extra points, but they losing that home country just does not help out in your point schedule. If as me and General Harrington were talking about yesterday, if Bob would have rolled higher numbers for U.S. wartime income, the war would have ended earlier. And they probably don't lose Bosnia. They probably don't lose Anatolia. And that's a 3-point swing because they would get 1 point for all that, and they wouldn't lose 2 other points. That was a huge swing for them, with the U.S. not being able to get up to wartime income quite as quickly. So Central Powers will end at 7. Now the Allies, they've only got 2 cities, so they get 2 points there. Destruction of the German Navy, yep. Mediterranean, no. They do not have Constantinople, and they do not have more dreadnoughts. So as a British player, you just got to remember, part of your victory objectives is to have dreadnoughts not only in the Mediterranean, but also in the Pacific. So the 2 points the British lost, even though they played very well and had a lot of territory, had a lot of money and everything, they had no dreadnoughts there and no dreadnoughts in the Pacific. So they don't get the Mediterranean dominance. Pacific security, they don't get that because, once again, no dreadnought. They do get the point for Africa. They have they took 2 German colonies in Africa, and they have the oil because they got southern Iraq. Okay? The French, they kept all their pieces. They have Bavaria. That was huge for them. They need the Allies had that Bavaria. Now oil. France did not get oil because the game ended early. Because I know his plan was to get Syria next. So he needs Syria in order to get that extra point. So they do not get that one. They maintain the empire. They have nothing lost. and they got a couple territories. There's a German territory they took there. There's a German territory they took there. So that's where they get the 2 extra points. So they have 4 of their 5 points. British have 3 of their. Obviously, they get all the Russian points too. That's 4 more. Now the U.S. Neutrality loses less than 10 land units and less than 2 capital ships. Well, I think in the entire game, the only thing they lost was 1 infantry that was placed in Pomorsky Krai for the Russian Revolution. So they get that point. Monroe Doctrine. No enemy units anywhere over here. So they get that point. Pacific Security. They do not get that one. Even though they have as many dreadnoughts as the Japanese, and they still own all their Pacific islands, the Chinese do not have 9 IPP in territory. So because of that, the U.S. does not get that point. And then global dominance, USA is at war with Central Powers and has 18 land units in Europe. It is tough to get that one with the option we picked. Actually, it's impossible to get that one with the option we picked because you're never going to go to war. But usually when you pick the peace without victory, you're so far ahead, you're trying to end it as quickly as possible to keep Central Powers from taking stuff back or something like that. And then China. Because of the Chinese territories they have, they will get 1 point for Chinese territory. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So the number of Chinese territories the Nationals has gives the Allies an extra point. So they have 2 cities, and then Britain 3, 4, 5, France 6, 7, 8, 9, Russia 10, 11, 12, 13, US 14, 15, and China is 16. So the final score is the Soviet has 14, the Allies have 16, and the Central Powers have 7 after their negative losses there. So overall, it was a very good game. One more round of the Russian Revolution and a lucky roll for Sweden, and the Soviets could win the game. But that is easily fixed by the dreadnoughts being moved by the British. But also the game ended, I believe the game ended like spring of 17. So the game ended on the turn the Russian collapse should have been rolled if we were playing normal. And it ended 3 turns before you would begin rolling the variable ending. So in a normal game, the British did what they did. They got to take care of up there, and then they got to start working their dreadnoughts around. But you guys got to remember to get some of that going, especially when the way we were going. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed playing the game with my fellow competitors. It was a hard-fought, well-done game. Obviously, we learn something new every time we play it because even though we've been playing this, we've been play testing this, we've been doing everything. Until weird things happen, you never know what's going to happen. I left Petrograd unmanned. If I don't do that, the Germans can't attack, and the Germans and the Russians may take Berlin. You never know. So I hope everybody enjoyed watching the videos. I hope everybody learned something. And when you play your own games, you try some of the stuff we did. You don't try some of the other stuff we did because some worked, some didn't work. If you remember our game from Hindenburg, I did a couple of mistakes there with the Germans that I learned from. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it and look forward to the next game we can play. It's going to be a little bit for me just because I have a February vacation planned, so I don't want to start a game and then be gone for a week and not be able to do anything. But hopefully we can get back on and play some other games here shortly. Thanks again for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Have a good one.